If I may have a very short comment to the previous presentation, I would like to say that in my opinion and opinion of some colleagues in Poland, states in member states in the European Union, they divide not according to the possession of euro or other currencies, or according to geographical line for so-called southern countries and northern countries, but rather according to manufacturing capability. States which are able to manufacture are in a better state. Germany is manufacturing. Some other countries in Europe, they abandoned manufacturing. In Poland, 25 years ago, we got persuaded that to manufacture is to do something wrong. That we had to go to services, finances, other kind of businesses, somehow forgetting that the basis is ability to produce something material, able to be sold. And of course, knowledge economy, new versions of manufacturing, high-tech manufacturing is something we should seek for. But anyway, it's not good situation when we have still growing services sector in Poland. We have services centers for Lufthansa and some others, probably Indian also companies very soon. And lowering percentage of manufacturing capability. This is just comment, and I return to very specific sector I was asked for. Gas, coal, energy, and independence. This is what I would like to touch upon. By the end of the 20th century, energy security became a challenge for governments of states considering themselves independent. It became their headache, their problem, tool in their political strategies and their target. You can imagine that you can scrap some of what I mentioned just above, but energy security has become a hot issue. It's a very modern issue. For about 20 years now, politicians, even those from so-called old Europe, have been more and more aware of the fact that supplies of energy carriers, their processing and distribution are not only a matter of free market economy. Even in Berlin, they had to admit that the Minister of Foreign Affairs, has something to say about energy issues. When EU ministers responsible for energy meet together, they wish more often than not that the meetings involve their colleagues from departments dealing with foreign affairs, state security, written by big S. More and more often, prime ministers and presidents are required to make decisions concerning these matters. More and more often, European summits discuss energy issues. Russian national energy security strategy for years 2003-2020 states openly that Russia can use its natural energy resources in order to reinforce its influence in the international arena. It also stresses that any threat toward its energy security relates both to its national and foreign policy security. It is during Putin and Merkel meetings that the basis for real cooperation has been decided. Russia provides gas and oil, Germany gives the latest technology, and the European market for energy carriers from the East. And if necessary, they will also build in Russia a training center for Russian army, as was mentioned before by Professor Novak. Neither Berlin nor Moscow cared enough to ask Warsaw about our opinion on the new strategic gas pipeline connecting Russia and Germany under the Baltic Sea. The Russians did not ask Warsaw or Vilnius for opinion either when they started building a new nuclear power plant in Kaliningrad. The plant will be situated 60 kilometers from the Polish border, and electricity produced there is to be sold in Poland. The only problem is that, officially, Poland doesn't know anything about it yet. Let's hope that decisions in this case will be taken in Warsaw in the end. Thank you for this map. Thank you for this map. It's time to show it. I feel myself today a bit like a war correspondent rather than academician, because this map, may I have this pointer? Yeah, okay, thank you very much. You see, the map shows Russian planned and completed investment in gas transmission system in Europe. Here is Yamal section of Polish, on the Polish soil, Yamal section of gas pipeline. Last week, 3 days ago, the memorandum of understanding has been signed by the chief manager of Gazprom, Mr. Miller, and the chief manager of Europol Gas, the owner of this section in Poland. And the memorandum of understanding says that both companies would like to analyze possibility of building Yamal 2 pipeline, which will go along the first pipeline, enter Poland, and probably the idea is to go like that to Slovakia, Hungary, and Balkans. The thing is that this time Russians, they decided to intervene into the management of the Polish company on the Polish soil directly. Because Europol Gas, it's a company which is which in half belongs to Polish company POGC and in half to Gazprom. And under the Polish and European law, transmission system operators are independent. So in Poland, there is only one transmission system operator for the country, which is state-owned gas system company, and it should stay like that. And it's for the operator of the transmission system to decide what is the plan, what is the direction of the development of the system. The Russian move is against Ukraine because it's cutting off these lines going through Ukraine, so it's directly against the Ukrainian state as it is right now. And at the end will be against Polish diversification efforts, means that our efforts to get other line of supplies for gas than from eastern side would be undermined by the new section being built in Poland. I am talking, it's a kind of appendix to what I want further to say. Just I decided to let you know what's going on currently, because it's not an academic issue what we are talking about. It's a battleground where there's no tanks, but for some countries like Russia, but some others as well, but Russia is important for Poland, the energy issue is energy supply issue is a problem of political expansion. And for our side, it's a problem of independence. Among the EU elite, Poland is treated more or less like China. It's another problem. I mean, parallel problem. So we are treated like China by the global historic powers. We are the savages with loads of coal, bad luck, and we cling to it, polluting the mankind and warming the global climate. The difference between China and us is that they do not care much and just keep doing what is good for them, and we are facing the threat of penalties which the European Commission will impose on Poland if we try to break out through the dictate of the global warming opponents and renewable energy resources supporters. Sovereignty nowadays can be measured, among else, by states' ability to practice independently its national energy policy and to enable influence from other states, organizations, or international corporations which act for their own businesses, not necessarily the same as ours. The historical inconvenience of Poland's being situated between Russia and Germany can also be felt when it comes to energy issues. The Germans would love our country to be a market for their gas turbines, biogas plants, wind power stations, and photovoltaic panels. They have produced more of them than they can sell, and the thought that billions invested in the renewable energy industry will never pay for themselves gives them a terrible headache. Russia has at completing its politically motivated gas and oil export with electricity export to Poland. Both these countries would welcome the situation if Poland was forced to resign from coal as its main source of primary energy. To make things worse, the Polish shale gas resources are a potential threat to Gazprom, direct threat to Gazprom monopoly's position in the region. Will the pessimistic scenario be implemented? It depends, if not totally, then mainly on us, on the Polish government and Polish voters. 90% of Polish energy production is based on coal and lignite. About 3% comes from gas, 2% from hydroelectric power plants. Poland can exchange electricity through cross-border trading, and that allows for about 5 terawatt-hours net export. We produce about 148 terawatt-hours per year, and almost everything is consumed in Poland. By the year 2016, or only a bit later than that, Poland should replace about 6,500 megawatts of capacity, electric capacity in production, with new power plants. There is an ongoing discussion in Poland these days whether these should be modern, highly efficient coal-powered plants or whether some of them should be gas-powered. Time is short, and unfortunately decisions are made based on short-term considerations, such as temporarily falling energy prices in Poland, which is the case, leading sometimes to abandonment of plans for building coal power installations. Both Polish energy sector and the whole economy are based on coal. Coal is our mixed blessing. The documented geological resources in Poland amount to more than 48,000 millions of tons of coal and about more than 22,000 millions of lignite. Currently estimated industrial resources are about 4,000 millions of tons of coal and more than 1 million tons of lignite. At the current volume of mining, we have enough coal for the next 60 years and enough lignite for the next 20 years, not to mention the fact that with the geological resources included, Poland has enough supplies for a couple of centuries ahead. The abundance of coal combined with a long tradition and often aggressive attacks on of our competitors to eliminate Polish coal often lead us to the position of defending our status quo in coal mining and processing, whereas we should concentrate on research and development of clean and more efficient modern technologies of using coal as energy source. Most of all, however, we should not neglect efforts to increase resources of industrial coal. We have to make practical use of our theoretical wealth. Coal will continue to be one of the basic energy resources in Poland for decades ahead, maybe even longer than that. Advanced coal processing technologies developed in Poland can be also successfully exported to countries which have no intention at all to resign from it. Resources of conventional gas deposits in Poland are estimated at about 1,000 billion cubic meters, 140 billion of which are industrial resources. Prepared for production is about 30 billion cubic meters. This does not mean, of course, that a sudden surge in gas production in Poland is possible. Being realistic, we can count on an increase in domestic production to about 6 billion cubic meters per year and maintaining at this level for many years. Natural gas is the basic raw material for Polish chemical industry, mainly for fertilizers production. It's also energy source for other industries and for refineries. A large number of Polish households use gas for cooking and about 800,000 uses for heating. The annual Polish consumption of natural gas is a bit more than 14 billion cubic meters. About 10 billion of it's imported from Russia on the basis of a long-term contract lasting until 2022. Domestic production from conventional deposits covers about 4.5 billion cubic meters. We also buy minor amounts of gas from Germany and Czech Republic. Although natural gas makes for only 12% of primary energy usage in Poland, it's at the same time very difficult to be replaced in many industries. This is why, in spite of the relatively low gas consumption in Poland, we are so vulnerable to the danger of disruption of deliveries from Russia's Gazprom, which in reality monopolizes natural gas import to Poland. A good example of Polish problems in relations with Moscow can be the story of building and exploiting the Yamal pipeline connecting Russia and Germany via Poland, as well as the situation with contract for gas supplies from Gazprom. It's hard to believe, yet true, that the Polish side practically does not benefit at all from the transfer of 28 billion cubic meters of Russian gas on the 600-kilometer long distance across Poland. It's like it's on the map. To make matters worse, in spite of the recently received price reduction, Poland pays for Russian gas much more than customers in Germany, France, and Great Britain. We are also under a constant threat of crisis in continuity of gas supplies, like in the years 2006 and 2009. Taking all this into consideration, it's not difficult to understand our efforts to diversify import sources and supply routes to Poland. As long as Gazprom is practically a monopoly in Poland and the wider region of Central Europe, the conditions of contracts put forward by the Russians will remain extremely detrimental for us. May I ask for the table? This is a table for some for those of you who would like to have a deeper knowledge. It's there are prices. Usually they are secret, but it's occurred that Russian newspaper is publishing this table. So you have here, list of countries to which Gazprom is selling the gas, and it shows then that Poland is buying gas with probably the highest, yes, at the moment. It's 2011, I'm sorry, because they didn't publish 2012. But anyway, in 2011, the highest possible price. Why? Because it's a dominant, let's say, partner. The late President Lech Kaczyński and the Law and Justice government with his brother Jarosław Kaczyński as Prime Minister prepared a program for diversification of energy carriers import to Poland, both gas and oil. We planned building of gas interconnector between Poland and Denmark, began the development of gas storage system, started works preparing for LNG terminal building in Świnoujście, difficult word, on the Baltic Sea. We also created a consortium to build an oil pipeline from Odessa on the Black Sea in Ukraine to Poland. The current government with the Prime Minister Donald Tusk resigned from most of these plans. The only investment which they decided to uphold, building LNG terminal, which is a good step, is going to be delayed anyway by at least a year, which means it will start to operate in the second half of 2015. Once we can finally begin to exploitation of the terminal, its capacity of 5 billion cubic meters will considerably improve the situation of gas import to Poland. It will not, however, solve all our problems. Statistics shows that Poland needs to buy abroad about 30% of all necessary primary energy. In theory, that should make us feel safer than other European countries. May I have this map? Next map? Right. Thank you. Which rely on foreign supplies to a much greater extent. However, almost 100% of our import comes from Russia, and that does not let us feel safe. One way gas import is not, unfortunately, the only our problem. Being an EU member state, Poland is obliged to take part in CO2 emission reduction program. There is no time here for critical evaluation of the whole ideology behind combat with global warming. Actually, it says in Poland these days that the European Commission succeeded and spring this year has been abandoned. But to say that the scientific evidences for these efforts are weak will be probably the least. Let me just call your attention to the suicidal tactics adopted by the European Union, which tries to impose upon itself the level and method of reducing CO2 emissions which nobody outside EU is willing to accept and implement. European industry is becoming less and less competitive against Asia, South America, but also against USA. Officially, everybody in EU is concerned by the drain of industrial investments outside the European borders, but the overwhelming attachment to the climate dogma is cleverly used by these companies and governments in the EU, which have invested billions of euros in new technologies and production of facilities for renewable energy. They want to get their return on the invested capital. The problem is that energy produced from wind, solar, and other renewable energy sources is generally much more expensive, at least in Europe, than energy produced in traditional coal, gas, or nuclear power plants. Energy from wind farms is twice as costly as from the coal plant. Thus, it has to receive financial support, which of course comes from taxpayers and customers' pockets. Companies in the renewable energy industry sector demand that this support is maintained, and it is to be financed, among else, from trading allowances for CO2 emissions. This particular tax on CO2 emission will first hit the heavy industry and in energy production based on fossil energy carriers. Once this mechanism is implemented, countries like Poland will find it very difficult to develop faster than the old Europe. Doesn't it work against the main European objective of convergence? Just like the EU competitiveness will decrease compared to the rest of the world, Polish competitiveness against other European countries will be in danger. the so-called decarbonization of EU economy is nothing less than outward attack on the coal-based Polish economy, and as such, it poses a threat to our energy security. The European Union emission trading system does not work quite as its authors expected. The price of CO2 emission has fallen to about €5 for 1 ton, which in practice is a threat to the renewable energy sector, as I described before. The process, although surprisingly fortunate for Poland, is being violently fought with. The European Commission suggested that allowances for emission of 900 million tons of CO2 be withdrawn from the market. Just a little bureaucratic interference in the free market mechanism. It's clear, of course, what is really at stake: the business of companies producing wind power stations, solar batteries, etc. The uncertainty about allowances for CO2 emissions combined with unexpected drop in wholesale energy prices in Poland result in difficulties with planning new power plants. Cost effectiveness of coal-based power plants is inadequate when compared to the subsidized energy from renewable sources. It's important for Poland to maintain a significant share of the traditional energy production. It's not clear, however, how we will cope with the EU order to obtain 15% of energy from renewable energy sources by 2020 without considerable subsidies to this sector, what in turn will ruin most of the business planning in the traditional energy producer. Not only do we have problems with CO2 emissions, but also we will soon have to face EU ruling on decreasing emissions of industrial dusts. We realize, of course, that while fighting CO2 emission can raise doubts, reducing emissions of industrial dust is beneficial for everybody, for all of us. It's also another big challenge for Polish energy production, however. Many electric and cogeneration plants in Poland will have to be replaced by new installations. Some Polish analysts expect that this will further increase gas consumption by about 5 billion cubic meters, not to mention the cost. Gas balance will become very tight again. In apparently critical situation, again, Poland is blessed by Providence, really, which granted us a large deposit of shale rocks. Polish geologists have been aware for a long time that these rocks contain methane. But until quite recently, there wasn't any method of releasing and extracting it. The American shale gas revolution has shown that what was beyond considering was impossible is possible now. Rapid increase in gas production from unconventional sources in the USA has caused a revolution in the gas market, not only in America, but also on the global scale. Suffices to say that the suspension of LNG imports to the United States resulted in a dramatic decrease in prices, what will directly improve profitability of LNG import to Poland through the terminal under construction in Świnoujście. So it's a direct link. May I have another map? Yeah, thank you. This map of Poland shows it's once again for those of you who would like to have more detailed information. I mean, I am leaving these pictures with the paper, so it would be possible to get it. This is just a report, current report of the situation in shale in Poland. Red places, there are places with concessions. 43 exploration wells have been completed, 17 wells fracked, 11 vertical wells fracked, 6 horizontal wells fracked, 39 wells to be completed in 2013, approximately 200 more wells to be completed by 2016. This is the scale of the event. It's not very big. It's not very big, unfortunately. Anyway, it's going on. So, even more important for Poland than this lowering of global prices of LNG are new possibilities of extracting gas from shale rocks in our country. There are different estimates of the amount of shale gas deposit, but it must be stressed that no prediction so far has been based on results from currently performed horizontal drilling and hydraulic fracturing. According to the 2011 report by U.S. Energy Information Administration, Polish prognostic resources are 5.3 trillion cubic meters. That amount would meet our needs for a few centuries, if the truth. According to the Polish Geological Institute, our resources can be estimated between 350 and 750 billion cubic meters. This report is based on data from 39 wells drilled between 1950, so very old ones, and 1990. New drillings provide more data, and the estimates will be verified accordingly. According to the U.S. Geological Survey, Poland has only 38 billion cubic meters of shale gas. Practical verification of such a divergent early estimates will come with data obtained from companies which were awarded licenses for the exploration of shale gas deposit in the last couple of years. 112 licenses have been awarded to less than 20 companies, both international like Marathon, Chevron, Talisman, and state-owned Polish companies, Orlen, POGC, and Lotos. Orlen and Lotos, they are refineries in Poland. More than 40 exploratory wells have been drilled so far, but only a few involve horizontal drilling and hydraulic fracturing. The first realistic results are expected next year, even not 2016, but 2014. A big problem for potential investors in Poland is a prolonging lack of modern legislative regulations concerning this type of hydrocarbon production. The appropriate draft act was submitted by Law and Justice Party, in opposition now, in November 2011. The ruling coalition, however, is not willing to proceed this draft because waits for the parallelly being prepared draft from the government. We can only hope that the new law will be passed quickly enough, and moreover that it will create necessary conditions for developing this new branch in Polish economy. Both versions of the new act, this from Kaczyński's opposition party and the preliminary version of the governmental one currently subjected to public scrutiny, are based largely on Norwegian and Danish solutions. Tax regulations are a different issue. The government global project suggests about 40% of gross profit as government take on the income. Companies raise doubts, of course, but everybody is aware of the fact that previous legislative void must be filled in, and the sooner it happens, better it is for investors. And the next map, please. This is once again, it shows once again this shale area on a Polish territory. Once again, you know, for somebody who would like deeper information. Another important factor is, of course, technology, and most of all, the question whether methods used in the United States can be easily employed in Poland. The answer can be crucial for early viability of drilling, and if it becomes necessary to work out modifications, it can cause a delay in large-scale production. We remember, of course, that the development of this sector in the United States took a long time, about 25 years before the revolution started. The prospect of possible gas production from unconventional resources in Europe, it showed quickly that France, Great Britain, Ukraine, Bulgaria, and also Germany have large deposits of shale rocks, resulted in preemptive attacks from all kinds of opponents. The first to voice their protest were ecological organizations repeating the rubbish from the movie Gasland. Much more dangerous, however, are the opponents fearing competition from cheap gas production in Europe. First of all, Russian companies selling raw energy carriers, especially Gazprom, which fight to maintain their monopoly or at worst their dominant position in Central Europe, including Poland. Secondly, this part of German industry, which invested huge money in the renewables sector and fears cheap source of gas in neighborhood, as it would eventually topple the business plans in this sector. Thirdly, the French nuclear lobby, who wants to exploit their nuclear plants without any problems, very cheaply, for another couple of dozen of years, which are necessary, to repay the upfront investment. As you can see, there are many centers interested in obstructing, if not preventing totally, production of shale gas in Europe. They will make all possible use of EU institutions and legislations to achieve that goal, if not directly, then by means of indirect steps. We are being very careful with any new legislative projects concerning environment protection, water supplies management, energy security, and so on. Yes, just 2 paragraphs. We cannot overestimate benefits of the potential success of shale gas production in Poland. 10 billion of cubic meters annually would solve our problem of dependence from Russia. Anything above that will add substantially to our allies' energy security and will be an important source of income for Poland. We want to remain level-headed about our chances, but I believe that we should also treat the developing of the shale gas sector in Poland as a strategic issue, reaching beyond one or the other term of parliament or beyond responsibility of one government. I would compare the importance and possible results of this matter to entering NATO in the 90s by Poland, which also required a national consensus necessary for Poland's success. Law and Justice, as a party, are worried by the reluctance which the ruling coalition shows when it comes to working out legislative basis, which will allow for safe and successful development of this new industry in Poland. It should be speed up. Success on this shale gas field will give us a tool necessary to retain energy sovereignty. It will let Poland play its own role in the European politics, despite the tendency to solve problems of Central European countries at the Russian-German table.